everybody, and welcome back to Sweet and Sour Soccer. And this one is a little bit bittersweet because, of course, it is the last championship predictions video of the season. And I'm going to miss doing these every week, but of course I will be back next season to continue them. And guys, let me know in the comments below, not only your predictions as always, but if you want to see any kind of other content throughout the closed season, whether that be championship content or just other general football content, do let me know. And guys, one last thing before I jump into these predictions. We're getting closer and closer to 2,500 subs. So if you can help us out and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And always, please do like the video as well. It does help us out so much. And let's waste no more time. Let's jump into these championship predictions. And we start off by giving a massive congratulations to Bournemouth, who have got promotion to the Premier League once again. Fair play to them. They were the better team against Nottingham Forest in Tuesday night's fixture, to be fair, and they probably deserve the win in that fixture on the night. They come up against a Millwall team who, it's unlikely to make the playoffs, but they will be praying that it can happen. And, especially with Bournemouth now promoted, you wonder if they'll be on a bit of a party, really. Of course, for that, they're going to need someone to slip up, and at least 2 out the 3 of Sheffield United, Luton. They'll need either one of those to lose or both to lose, and they'll also need Middlesbrough to get no more than a point. They need that kind of scenario. Of course, they do have a better goal difference than Luton, so maybe that's one they're eyeing up. It is unlikely, but I am going to back Millwall in this fixture. I'm going to say Bournemouth might be on the holidays. 1-0 to Millwall. And what, to be fair to them, has been a very good season, regardless of if they make the playoffs or not. We come on to a team that hasn't had a good season. That, of course, is Birmingham City, but it's probably not surprising to the fans now. Always just seem to do enough to stay up, but never seem to do anything more than that. And I think, you could see why they're maybe getting a bit tiresome of the owners and also venting their frustration as well when you look at stuff, things such as the ground also falling apart as well. They come up against the Blackburn Rovers team. Of course, they were challenging for the playoffs up to the end. Unfortunately, their first half of the season form hasn't carried on into the second half of the season, and that's really where they lost out, especially with the goal-scoring prowess. Of course, Tony Mowbray apparently going to be leaving the club at the end of the season. And early rumours that Daniel Farke might be coming in. So a really interesting summer for Blackburn Rovers, of course. Also, we'll be interested to see if they can keep hold of some of their key players as well. But I think Blackburn get the win in this one. I do think Blackburn will get a 2-0 victory in this fixture. We come on to Stoke City now, taking on Coventry City, and 2 teams who, finished relatively in mid-table. Going to be interesting for them next season. One of these teams makes a couple of good signings, could be enough to push them up into that playoff discussion. But in this fixture, I think, of course, it is a bit of Midlands derby. I think it's going to be end-to-end, and I do think there's going to be some goals, so I'm going to go 2-2 in this one. We come on to West Brom now, taking on Barnsley, and starting off with West Brom, of course. Looks like Steve Bruce is going to be continuing with the club. He's going to be responsible for the rebuild that is needed for West Brom. He's said himself that a lot of the players may be a bit too comfortable. They need to shake things up. They need some more competition, some more creativity in midfield to obviously strike a much better performance from them next season. Another team that probably could do with a bit of a rebuild, Barnsley, made the playoffs last season, but lost some of their major players. Of course, also lost their manager and also lost some key backroom staff, which is why we see them this season, unfortunately, going down into League One. This one's going to be an interesting fixture, but I am going to give it to the home team, a narrow 1-0 win for West Brom in this one. Huddersfield Town, a team that is confirmed in the playoffs, taking on Bristol City. Huddersfield Town, firstly, they're on some wonderful form, aren't they? And I think they'll be wanting to continue that coming up against the Bristol City side, where you can see what they need next season. They need to shore up that defence, because you look at the goals scored actually haven't been too bad this season. But if they really need to shore up that defence, a couple of defensive signings, and I think Bristol City will be on for a much better season next year. Of course, they need to keep hold of their better players as well. Be interesting to see what the owners' intents are there. But Huddersfield, I am going to give them the win in this one. I think they'll be keeping that momentum going into the playoffs. It is important that they keep that great form and that great run going. Nottingham Forest versus Hull now. And Nottingham Forest, to be fair, they missed out on automatic promotion. But if you're Steve Cooper, you're trying to remind them of how far they've come since he took the reins and since the start of the season, how they've turned it around and what they've achieved. Get them going for that playoff fight, because it's going to be a really interesting playoff. So we will do a video on that next week, talking about the 4 teams that do make it and how we think those playoffs are going to go. So do look out for that one. Taking on a Hull City that has really, had a better, apart from the last game, had a better end to the season than perhaps how it started. Managed to pull themselves away from that 20th spot, which they clung on for much of the season. But up the table, for them in the summer, maybe Lewis Potter might move on, but that could free up some funds because, he's a very talented youngster. It won't be cheap. And maybe that would allow them to have actually a better season next season. But I do think Forest are going to win this one. I'm going to go for a 3-1. I think they'll be wanting to put on a performance and just show, those teams coming into the playoffs. But no, they are still very much focused. Luton Town now. And Luton Town are an interesting one because they take on a Reading team that are now safe. Obviously, for Reading, going to be interesting to see what they do next season with Paul Ince in charge. They managed to pull away from that relegation battle at one point. It did look quite grim for them. They'll come up against Luton though, and Luton are not yet confirmed in the playoffs. For a long time, it looked like they were more or less over the line. A draw and a loss in the last 2 with the teams below them, obviously picking up their form a little bit, has resulted in it being a much nervy end to the season. I think Luton will, obviously side with themselves, though, at home. Their form has been much better at home. One thing to bear in mind with Luton is they probably could do with the win because of their goal difference. Their goal difference is lower. So when you consider if, like, Middlesbrough win, Luton get the draw, it would be Luton that would miss out. But I think they will get the win against Reading. I'm going to say Luton make the playoffs in this one. I am going to say a 2-0 victory for Luton. Preston North End now taking on Middlesbrough. And I've just spoke about Middlesbrough. Of course, they need a win, don't they? Nothing else will do but a win. They probably would have wanted this time maybe at home, having the home fans behind them. I imagine they'll probably be, maybe the players not so much, but the fans that are there will be very much also glued to their phones, wanting to know all the fixtures that are coming in, the results that are coming in, seeing if they have got that chance to get into the playoffs. They take on a Preston team, very mid-table, and you just feel that next season they'll probably be mid-table as well. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know. Just feels like they're a very mid-table championship team at the moment. I'm going to give Middlesbrough the win. I think they'll pull off a win. I think it'll be a very patchy game, a bit defensive. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Middlesbrough win, though. And, of course, we talk about now another team battling for these playoff places, and that is, of course, Sheffield United taking on an already champions and promoted Fulham. Of course, Sheffield United will be desperate for it not to be the Fulham that took on Luton Town the other night. Of course, that 7-0 defeat for Luton hasn't helped out their goal difference, and Mitrovic was on absolute fire. You hope if you're a Sheffield United fan and players that maybe they've been enjoying that obviously confirmed championship victory, and maybe they'll be on the holidays, they'll be eyeing up their trip abroad, because Sheffield United at home, well, they could still require the win in this one. And I think this is going to be it's going to be interesting. It just really depends how much Fulham turn up. And I'm going to go 1-1 in this fixture. I'm going to go 1-1. I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. I think off the top of my head, Middlesbrough's and Sheffield United's goal difference is quite close, is it? So I can't quite think how that would end up, but I'm going to go 1-1 in this fixture. Swansea now taking on QPR, and Swansea are an interesting team to watch because obviously They've had a good end to the season. They're quite the opposite for Queen's Park Rangers, who have just ultimately just died off in towards the close of the season, the second half of the season. Swansea going to be an interesting one next season. If they make a couple of good signings, keep hold of some of their best players, of course, people might be eyeing up, especially the Premier League, their striker Pyro, who's been absolutely brilliant this summer, this season, still a young striker as well. QPR, I just don't know what to say about them really, and the fact that, they really just went to pot, didn't they, in the second half of the season. Now, I've got to say this fixture as well, I'm going to give it to Swansea. I think they keep up their good form. 2-0 victory for Swansea in this fixture. We come on to Peterborough now, taking on Blackpool. And, well, Peterborough going down to League One, but it's not something that's foreign for them. They've done it before. They'll be wanting to obviously replicate going down, coming back up. They know the league well, but it's not easy to do in League One. It's getting more and more competitive each year. And of course, some big teams down there coming up against the Blackpool team, who at one point really picked up form about 10 games from the end and almost could have had a bit of a playoff chase if they'd kept that form going. This one's going to be an interesting fixture. I think I'm going to give it to the away team now, and I'm going to say a 2-1 victory for Blackpool. I think this might be the last fixture to predict, and it's, of course, already relegated Derby County coming up against Cardiff City, who are not finishing the season in the best of form, something they'll be wanting to replicate next season. Derby County are an interesting one. It's gonna be an interesting summer for them, isn't it? The takeover. Interesting to see what's going to happen in regards to point deductions, what players they manage to keep. Wayne Rooney will, of course, be topic of discussion, but hopefully that team do all come together and they go again, and who knows, maybe gets Derby promoted back into the Championship. And to be fair, I feel they've been punished enough for obviously their financial fair play breaches and stuff. I'd like to think that they're not going to be hit with yet another heavy points fine, but we will see. And I think that is my last prediction of this season. As I said, though, we are going to do a playoffs prediction as well. So do check that one out when it comes out next week. And please help us out on our journey to 2,500 subs. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back with more Championship predictions next season, guys. And if I don't see you on another video before then, I'll be a little bit disappointed, but I guess I'll see you in the next season. Goodbye.